Hello everybody and welcome to the ongoing stream of Final Fantasy II that we're doing as part of our Retro Tuesday streams. This is, I believe, the fourth time we've done a stream on Final Fantasy II, so we're making some pretty good progress through the game, and hopefully we'll do some pretty good progress again today. As usual, I'll give people a moment or two to jump on and say hello, because obviously these things are better if we have people to talk to as we play. But yeah, we should make some pretty good progress. I have done what I usually do, and I've played about a half hour during the last week, just so that I can make sure that my characters are leveled up, so you don't have to watch me do the grind, as many old JRPGs require. My characters should be pretty much leveled, so we'll be right to get through the next hour or so of play. Hello, Dithzy Ram, and welcome to the stream with that spectacular entrance. Spectacular. Just to let everybody know in advance, if I break down into coughs and hacks and stuff as we play, that is simply because I'm recovering from some weird flu thing. Not the COVID-19 virus, thank goodness. But, yeah, on Sunday I came down with something. So I wasn't able to do my usual Sunday stream, which is why you might not have seen that. Hopefully I can get through this without losing my voice, and we can have a good gaming session. So we'll just give people another 1 or 2 moments to jump in. Then I'll give everyone a quick summary of where we're at, and we will crash on through some more Final Fantasy 2. Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy 2 depends on which version you're talking about. In the West, when it was on the Super Nintendo, this was actually Final Fantasy 2, but actually chronologically, it's the 4th. It's just that the second and third ones were not originally localized. Oakley dokley. So, let's go. I'll just load things up. As you can see, we are now at 4 hours and 29 minutes of play, of which about 3 hours has been solid gameplay you've watched on the streams, and the other hour and a half has just been me running around and grinding up. And as you can see, that was just, you might have heard a bit of feedback there, that was just me having the actual stream going on in the background as well. As you can see, there will be, the lowest level of my characters is level 15. Last week when we finished up the stream, the lowest level of my characters was about, what was it? It was about 11 or so. So I've done 4 levels with the leveling. Hello Muskind, and welcome to the stream as well. Sean, good to have you on as always. Looks like we've got a little bit more of a delay than normal with regards to latency, so I will probably be talking, I'll probably be answering any things that you say a little bit later than normal this week. Possibly my internet is running slow because we are living in Australia, and Australian internet is absolutely terrible. Okie dokie, so, as you may have remembered if you were on the stream last week or watched it on a replay, we got through 2 dungeons, and they were both pretty important dungeons in the context of the game. The first dungeon was a attempt to get an item that could save Rosa's life, Rosa being the character here on the screen. She's the love interest for Cecil, and she was sick, so we had to go into an antlion's den, grab that, and escape. The second dungeon we had to go through was actually a mountain, and it was the opportunity we had to meet with Yang. Yang being the monk there, who in the Super NES version of the game was called Karate, which is a very interesting job. Imagine having a job called Karate. No, he's a monk in later games, and yeah, we met him, and now we're off to his castle because it's going to be under attack, and we're going to see what we can do about saving it. It's under attack by an evil empire that's looking to steal all the crystals. Very typical Final Fantasy IV plot, and yeah. Rydia and Rosa fanart. Next. Yeah, Rydia and Rosa are both pretty popular characters with the fan artists. Back in these days, you only really had Yoshitaka Amano's beautiful art to look at to get a real sense of what the characters look like. Otherwise, you're looking at these little sprites, and perhaps a print image of the character in the manual. These days, of course, you get the beautiful 3D graphics and you know, just about everything, so nothing's left to the imagination anymore. But back in these days, yes, you had to kind of imagine what these characters would actually look like. And Rosa was certainly a popular one, and Radia was too. Something I'd forgotten about. You can actually cycle through which character is the lead character on the map as well, just by tapping the R button on the Super NES controller. And let's stick with Rosa. Rosa's my favourite character in this game, at least right now. Okay. So here we are in Fabul, which is, like I said, it's Yang's home and castle. They're worried about it being under attack. We were waiting for you. See, I don't even know if this game was actually released in Australia on the Super NES, to be honest. I played it first. The first time I played it was through less than legitimate means, let's put it that way. I don't think it was. I think Nintendo and Square Enix Square back then, they took a while to realise that Australians like RPGs too. So yeah, I definitely only had the Rosa, the art to go by. Yeah, if the internet was around back then, I'm sure they would have found some way to make sprites work for Rule 34. So those very helpful guards say they're waiting for us. Let's see if these ones say the same thing. Oh, yes. They're all waiting for us. Excellent. Nothing to see. So, I've already healed my characters up. I made sure that I was in a good spot before saving at the end of my last leveling up session. But there's the inn that we could drop into. There's also the equipment. But I don't actually think I've bought the best equipment for my characters actually right now. So, I can choose to give Yang a Fire Claw, an Ice Claw, or a Thunder. Not a Claw, just a Thunder. Character limits on items back in those games. And that will improve, that will give him an elemental attack if I want to. I can also give black and black armor. Let's give Yang a Thunderclaw. I did not know that. Thank you for that side fact digression. Very interesting. Okay, where was I? I was just about to give Yang some equipment. Give him his Fire Claw. He's already got a Fire Claw, so there we go. If I grab his left hand, I can give him Thunderclaw on the left hand, so he's got both armors. Now, you may remember that the equipment I could buy was called Black Armor for the Dark Knight. He already has Darkness. I can't remember if Black Armor is better or not, so let's find out, shall we? Let's go with the cheapest bit of Black Armor, which would be the Black Helmet. Let's see if that's actually better. Or if I've just wasted my money. So there's only a couple of stats to watch in Final Fantasy IV. It was a more simple time. There you see the weapon or the attack strength, the armor strength, and the magic strength. So we bought a black helmet, and if we equip it, we get a slight boost to his defense. Whether that's worth the money or not, I don't know, but I might as well spend it. Might as well. Got nothing better to do with my money anyway. There we go. So anyway, as I'm going through all this equipment stuff, how is everybody going this week? What games are you all playing? Are you playing anything interesting? I hope you are. Hope you're playing exciting things. Here we go. We're all set to go to plunge on. What do I recommend for a desktop that can do gaming? That's a good question. For 2,000, to be honest, I don't think you necessarily need a desktop. You can get a pretty good laptop that will do all the gaming you kind of need for that amount of money. There's this one that I use. I mean, the laptop I use hasn't let me down yet. Lets me play pretty much every game that I've tried on it. So I haven't tried Red Dead Redemption or anything nonsensey like that, but all the games I do play, which is all the strategy games and whatever, and video editing and all the streaming stuff, I can do all of that through my Gigabyte Aero, which is a laptop I got a couple of weeks ago, and it's really nice. It's about $2,000. Kunio-kun game. What was that? Did that come out in English? The name's not ringing a bell, but I might just be drawing a blank right now. Would not be surprising. I'm a little bit jazzed out on on some medication to try and get through this. So if I sound a little bit weird through this, if I'm not coughing or hacking, then it might just be the medication's taking hold. So yeah, if that's come out in English, I'm drawing a blank. But if not, I'm quite keen to hear more about it. Meanwhile, I'm just going to explore around the castle a little bit. Not that there's too much to see from memory. It's a pretty small castle, really. It's a pretty dismal effort. They could have done something a little bit more impressive with all the money they no doubt had because they're an empire or whatever. Right, I honestly do not know that series, so I'll definitely do some research after I jump off the stream to see. And if you're really not that keen on laptops, honestly I'm not quite sure where you might want to go with desktops. It's not something that I've really looked into. Because these days, like I said, I'm pretty happy with the quality I get out of my laptops. I heard you were ambushed on Mount Hobbs. Are you okay, sir? Thank you very much for showing your concern. Both of them. Wow. Yang must be a popular fella. Oh, I see. Okay. So it's a brawler thing. Why not watch her dance? That'll do. Oh dear. Achoo! Not quite sure what dancing and achoo have to do, but you know, there it is. Here we go. We're safe in the castle, so you think. Beat them up, sir. Why not? And back from train. Interesting place to put a pub right there in the corner of the castle. Found a tent. Having fun looting the castle. That's the king's bedroom. Cool. And over the other side, I'm not going into the middle just yet because that'll progress the story, and of course I want to see the treasures I can get first. Have you happened to have played, what's the name of it? The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa? Sean? I imagine you probably would enjoy that game since you're a fan of River City Ransom and stuff. Naming way, would you like to change your name? No thanks. Does anybody remember back with the Super NES JRPGs, and in fact the PS1 era ones as well, you always got to name your characters because they weren't voiced, and therefore you could give them any name and that would be perfectly fine. That's actually something I've kind of missed, because yeah, these days they've got to give the characters set names because otherwise they can't they can't vocalize them through the script, or it's very annoyingly, it's written. They write around it in a way that gets frustrating towards the end of it. So, yeah, I have missed that about my JRPGs, being able to name them. Oh, good. Yes, Arrest of the Stone Buddha. We've actually got a review of that up. I didn't get a chance to write it because that game absolutely ruins me and I can't make any progress. But another guy on the team wrote a review about it. He loved it. I thought what I was able to play through I was really quite good as well. It's definitely not my kind of specialty genre, but I do enjoy it. If it's done well, I appreciate that it's able to ruin me. I always think with this particular conversation that Yang's wife doesn't sound like she's all that thrilled. I mean, it's just a thanks. The tone I read it in is more like, why'd you do that? That's me being a bit nasty, I guess. There's no reason not to think that Yang is anything but a perfect husband. Okay. And yeah, you need you do need a very, especially with Neo and Dark Souls and Sekiro and all of the others, you do need a very strong, I guess, level of patience for dealing with those bosses. If you're not the kind of person that enjoys being beaten 50, 60, 70 times, then those games can be tough. I still recommend them for people, just in case that people do find them to be engaging, or one of them in particular catches people on, and a person on, and they really get hooked on it, and through that persevere. But yeah, unfortunately, with any difficult, super difficult game, there is a certain audience that will never click with it, and it is always in the bosses that do it. However much you might enjoy the rest of the game, yeah, those bosses can kind of ruin it for you, unfortunately. So once again, just to catch people up in case you've missed the previous couple of streams, basically these heroes are all on a quest to stop an evil emperor from grabbing all of the crystals that each of the kingdoms hold. Yang actually belongs to this kingdom, and they've got word that they're probably going to be attacked to get their crystals, so they've come rushing back to try and save the castle. Yang is a very trustworthy. Yang is a very trusting person. He's very willing to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Yes, it is, unfortunately, I guess, it is repetitive music. It is the, I guess, castle of, and they've probably gone for a military vibe with this one in particular, because it's the warrior monks. Not the greatest track of music in the context of this game. Though Final Fantasy II does have some very lovely music. when I was a couple of times I've been able to go along to Final Fantasy music concerts, once in Australia and once in Japan, and they always play something from Final Fantasy IV, and yep, really enjoy the music overall, especially when it is done orchestrally and it's proper instruments rather than MIDIs. And anyway, now we are going to defend the castle from the attacks of the evil Baron people. And straight away they hit my weakest character, Edward. Bloody hell. Always making things hard for me. Now, once again, I have done some leveling up in the week, so hopefully my characters are off a level that I'm able to deal with this without too much trouble. We've made the general retreat, got some cash, got some XP. And here we go again. Once again attacked. Looking to defend the castle. It's a very Lord of the Rings 2 Tower-like, this attack. You feel like you're fighting against an overwhelming number of enemies, and you just know that this isn't going to end well for anybody, but you're fighting against hope anyway. Got to keep the drama going nice and strong. And of course nobody else is actually any help anyway. All the other soldiers get defeated nice and easy. Now the general should retreat, because the general is not a particularly brave enemy. He always runs away, unless I get a chance to kill him. No, he'll retreat. There we go. Retreats. And we survived another attack. Doing pretty well so far. A little bit of deception there. Apparently a gargoyle is able to hide himself as a soldier of the castle, which is a pretty impressive effort since the gargoyle doesn't look anything like Yang. But a bit of magic, I guess. A bit of transformation magic. I had a Lenovo once. It was actually quite a good little laptop. It was a laptop, it wasn't a desktop, but it did its job quite nicely. I really did like my Lenovo. I used it more for work than games or anything like that back then, but yeah, I really like the keys. I don't know what the Lenovo keys would be like on desktop, but I really like the laptop keys. I guess working PCs need to have a good keyboard, and that one did. Oops. Edward fell over. He really is hopeless. Always the cause of trouble is Edward. Little Ed. And retreat. The generals are really... They just don't hang around and give me a chance to knock them out. I don't even know what happens if you knock them out. Maybe get a good boost of experience. If it's possible. And now they're retreated to the crystal, which they obviously will plan on protecting with their lives. And into Kane. Now, if you've been watching along since the start of the retro streams that we've been doing, you would know that Kane started out as Cecil's buddy. Then they got separated. And now Kane is the enemy. I wonder why. We'll find out soon enough, no doubt. Oops. As you can see, that was a battle I was meant to lose. And now into one of the main antagonists in the whole game. This is our first meeting of Golbez. You may remember that he's been preempted a couple of times in previous streams because they keep talking about him being the leader that is kind of behind these efforts to grab all the crystals. Now we see him for the first time, and of course he's wearing the menacing cloak, little sprite as he is. He carries an awful lot of gravitas about him. And there's an intensity to that sprite, which was pretty intimidating back in those days. You knew right away that he was something to take seriously. And of course Rosa is once again the damsel in distress. Can never forget about how much of a trope that was back in games this era. Basically, if it was a love interest or an attractive or woman character, she was almost certainly going to be captured at some point. But yeah, it's pretty galling that you just saved her with her life with that antlion item, Sand Ruby. And then almost immediately afterwards she gets captured and once again disappears off. It's a pity because she's a good healer. Very useful in the party. But that was a pretty spectacular effort or failure of an effort to protect the crystal. They got comprehensively beat. And so that's basically it. Interestingly, I guess, there was no actual boss fight at this moment. I'm guessing that the developers probably wanted to set things up so that you firstly got the sense that Cain was the enemy now and therefore going to be a boss, and then secondly that Golbez was just too powerful to actually be a boss fight at this point. So even though it felt like it should have been a boss battle scene, there was no fight there. It was just it was a train wreck for the heroes, and now they realise that they're pitifully equipped to actually fight back against the force of the Empire. So you got that sense, again, from very little words, because like we've been saying over the last couple of streams with this thing, back in those days they didn't have too much to work with, so they made the most of very limited resources, and it's pretty impressive that they were able to convey so much information just simply through the very simple gameplay mechanics they had and a couple of words. You got all of that sense, and now we have to deal with the aftermath, I guess. There's the king's bedroom, I think, or maybe it's just a treasure chest. There we go, a couple of treasure chests. Secret room. Always good fun to wander around the castles in a Final Fantasy game, because you do get to find all those wonderful secret rooms which have all kinds of loot. Now we have to go and find the king, which, remember, we did actually see the king beforehand. He was in one of the towers of the castle, so we better go out and say goodbye, since we were told he was injured and resting in his room, in his quarters. Apparently the inn survived, and the king, who lives just above the inn, is there resting. It's either a really good thing or a really bad thing to have your room just above a pub. I mean, there are certain conveniences that you can't deny about staying right above a pub, but there is noise. I know from having stayed in a pub residence as a hostel thing, backpackers accommodation once, it was noisy, because obviously people in the pub aren't necessarily concerned about whether you can sleep upstairs or not. Always kings. Final Fantasy was always kings. Or emperors. Or queens, I guess. There was probably a queen somewhere in Final Fantasy. But they're always monarchs of some variety. It's to capture the whole medieval fantasy thing where they didn't have democracies just yet. Cain, who used to be my best friend, without a grammar check in there. So you may have remembered that through that store we bought black equipment, black helmet, black armor, black shield. Now we have the black sword, which wasn't available for purchase. Now we got it as a gift. That's why it wasn't for purchase, because you wanted to... It's a kind of a narrative important moment. So do remember that if you're tuning into the streams. Remember that we got that black sword with the promise that it would not work against pure evil. Very fantasy kind of tradition there, in terms of the motif of the black sword. Yes, used to be my best friend, now we're just buds. They had a falling out and now they need to work through their issues. Go to a camp. We better equip that black sword. And as you can see, it actually gave a huge boost to both armor and attack, which is going to be handy, of course. Having the extra power is always a useful thing, and we're going to need it. Yes, the sword right through the blackest of hearts. I didn't even know we had emoticons on YouTube, so now I do. That's pretty cool. We can do pictures. I thought that stuff was just Twitch. And I was being a technological laggard by not doing Twitch. I can't do Twitch. YouTube is about my limit. Hug it out, boys. Yeah, yeah. Daggerfall is in the Elder Scrolls game. Actually, that's a good point. Maybe I should. I've never actually played Daggerfall. I haven't played Arena either, so those are the first two Elder Scrolls games. I got into that series with Morrowind, so only when it kind of turned, 3D graphics did I get into that series. Loved it. I don't know why I've never played Daggerfall, probably because I just can't imagine actually getting it to work on my PCs or whatever. But these days I know that stuff is much easier. Okay. So, we got to fight a battle, that's alright. Let's just beat down the bombs. Yeah, that black sword does some pretty good damage, which is nice. Always useful. Much more damage than the silly music weapon of Edward. Okay, so obviously we're well and truly powerful enough for that. Just going to, since we've hit a pretty important milestone, I'll just quickly save the game. That way, if for whatever reason I need to restart, we don't have to go through all of that castle attack again. Okay, so as you will see, there is a boat there. There wasn't a boat there beforehand. By going through the castle attack and losing the crystal, we now have a new mode of transport. And Final Fantasy always starts to get good where you get the really neat modes of transport like the boats and the airships. Haven't got an airship just yet, but the boat will do for now. Yeah, Yang's wife is totally happy to just get rid of him. She's just quite happy for him to, disappear for a couple of months to go on this quest to help Cecil deal with his friendship issues with Cain. See, if they were going to do a Final Fantasy IV remake in the same vein that they were going to do a they did the Final Fantasy VII remake, you just know that Yang's wife would firstly get a name, which would be nice, rather than just be Yang's wife. She'd have a name, and she'd have some kind of affair with Cecil, and there'd be this whole romantic subplot, and it'd go for 30 hours, and then they'd split Final Fantasy IV into 3 different games. Nothing good opens up a boat. No, that's alright. This isn't Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI is the one where there's that big octopus that just attacks things on boats, or rafts, or anything on the water. This boat is perfectly fine, I'm sure. Oh, I think they're waiting for... Oh, no, there we go. And we're off. Boat sails nice and fast, much faster than we walk, which is pretty handy. And the wind always seems to be conveniently blowing in whatever direction the boat's going. I don't think seafaring was actually quite this easy in reality, but it makes for a pretty sprite. I do like the boat sprites. So if you're watching the stream from the start, you may remember Sid. Sid showed up briefly in the first game, in the first stream we did, because he was the engineer for the bad guys, as we now know them as. And yeah, he's a bushy beard fellow, very nice guy. We're going to hang out with him. Oh no! It looks like you might have been right, Sean. It's almost like you've played this game before. Something seems to be happening to the boat. It might not be something good either. The whole shaking vibe. Oh, it's a tentacle. Because of course it is a Japanese RPG, so tentacle makes sense. Ooh. Also known as the most irritating boss in Final Fantasy XIV. True story that. Of all the bosses that I've fought in Final Fantasy XIV, and admittedly I haven't played some of the more recent ones from the latest expansion and whatever, but yeah, that guy, he annoyed me. That boss battle was just a pain. I enjoyed most of the other bosses in Final Fantasy XIV, especially Good King Mog, but that one, no thanks. Yeah, this is exactly how it played out in Speed 2. I remember that movie. Actually, that movie probably would have been better with a big water dragon. It would have made much more sense too. And so, once again, all of Cecil's allies proved to be pretty useless in the end, and he's all left alone. So, as we've said a couple of times in streams in the past on Final Fantasy IV, one of the great things about this game, in terms of it as a narrative work, is the way that it moves the party around. Characters drop in and out constantly as needed within the plot, which is a nice way of bringing relevancy to each character and making sure that they have a role to play in the plot rather than just sitting in the background as a party member through most of it. I really like this approach with Final Fantasy IV. I wish more games did a better job of kind of cutting characters in and out. That's where Kiana lived. I haven't played Navigatoria. Maybe I should. That's a pretty sad moment, really, where Cecil goes, "I'm all alone." It's because he's wearing the black armor, you see. If you wear the black armor, you always end up alone. That's the philosophy that Final Fantasy IV is sharing here. By being a black knight and wearing the black armor, wielding the black sword, he's a very lonely person inside. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. You finally end up with a party of 5 characters, and then the first time you play Final Fantasy IV especially, you immediately think, oh great, so this is my party now for the rest of the game. And pretty soon after, without even fighting another boss actually, because like we said, there was no boss in that castle fight, without even fighting another boss battle to really get to use your full party, they all get split up and you're left with just the one character again. It's pretty compelling stuff for Final Fantasy back in those days, and for JRPGs they just didn't do that. This was when Square took risks with the storytelling, and it's impressive. And he is right on the corner of a peninsula, so all alone, as you can see. Got nothing going for him, except for the fact he has the black sword, so he's a pretty powerful fighter at this point. And there's a village pretty much immediately anyway, which is pretty hard to miss. You see, if I wanted to miss going into that village, I had to... And I know this sounds silly, but back in those days, the developers really needed to find ways of forcing players to do things that they might not have wanted to do. And in this case, it's almost impossible to miss that village, because obviously you have to go there. That's about where that's what's going to progress the plot further. I have absolutely no idea what any of you are talking about, to be honest. I know it's really bad, but my musical knowledge is nowhere near my knowledge when it comes to films and video games. I like a couple of select music acts, mostly the Japanese independent music, Hatsune Miku of course, and English stuff, mostly rock. I'm a big fan of Placebo and Muse and whatever, but yeah, my music knowledge is really deficient, and I'm well aware of that. So you name album names and I'm just going to get lost, more likely than not. Apologies for that, for any music fans that might be upset that I'm not familiar enough with all the great music out there. It's not for lack of respect, it's just everybody has limits to the amount of time they have, and I just haven't had a chance to explore music as well as I want. Anyway, you may have noticed, if I go back out, I hope the name of it pops back up again. The name of this town is Cydia. Now, Cydia may ring a bell if you remember right at the start, when you were fighting for the bad guys, you were part of the Red Wings. You may remember that the crystal that you stole was from Cydia. So in a bit of irony, Cecil has kind of arrived at the town in a very bad state and needs their help. And this is the very same town that he robbed of their precious crystal. And on top of that, they're all black mages, so that's not a good thing either. That's exactly right. He has no idea where he is, and he's just wandered into the one town that he just does not want to be in, actually. Okay, so... Oops. Straight away talks to somebody, and... I just got turned into a toad. Can't say I didn't deserve it, but I am what I am. Not a very warm reception. Some philosophy there, good to remember. Currently a toad, so I don't know why she's scared of him. He's not exactly much right now. Looking around for the loots. It's interesting that the training room, which is basically where the tutorials and stuff sit, is so far into the game, because you don't get a chance to go there beforehand. So for it to be right there is an odd one, but I guess that's kind of your opportunity to learn more advanced techniques if you're new to Final Fantasy. Okay. If I drop into the inn... Oops, get out of the way. If I drop into the inn, I should be able to recover. Oops. I poisoned you a bit. Just a little bit. Not too much. So being turned into a toad and then poisoned. Those status decreases are really starting to bite. Anyway, let's see if we can go for the triple whammy. Yep. Whoops. Got lulled to sleep by the dancer. So it turned into a pig and a toad. They really don't like him. Let's just deal with all of that. There we go. Just a single potion dealt with it. But back to fresh Cecil. Okay. That was a lot of fun. Got the punishment he deserved for being a bit of a jerk earlier in the game. And now we're about to face the actual leadership of these people, which you can imagine is not going to be the most warm reception. But, you know, Cecil needs the help. So this is an important conversation. As you can see, the elder, who's a very wise man, being the magician and all that, has said that with that dark sword that Cecil wields, he cannot defeat true evil. Moreover, he can be consumed with evil at any time. So at any point, he can actually lose control of himself again and be taken over to the dark side, to use the Star Wars term. So yes, we've got two new characters that have joined the party. They're both a little bit eccentric, to say the least. They're young wizards that belong to this town. And the Elder has been willing to forgive us and give us a quest, I guess, to redeem ourselves in their eyes. And as you can see, they're nicely leveled to 10, which means they've got some magic up their sleeves already. Not too much, but a little bit. And naturally I'm going to want to level them up a little bit more prior to taking on this dungeon, but at least I've got some support now. Now, as the Elder said, we have to go to the east of the town, which is to the east. Oh, you've yet to see Cecil really start to fly. He's a good character. I'm actually a big fan of good old Cecil. You'll see soon enough. So unfortunately, the two little wizards that have joined us, Porom and Palom, are not exactly the fastest people around. They take their time to take their turn. But we'll get there. It doesn't help that we got attacked by behind for our very first attack, our very first moment of teamwork. You have to deal with Cecil being the one in the back, and the two wizards being the ones that take all the damage. But there we go, we got through it. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Okay, so back to the east. We're going to the east. Quite a long journey, this one. Across some geographic land that would probably not happen that way in the real world. I can't imagine any geological forces that would result in the landmass looking like this, but there you go. It must have been fun being a map designer back in these days. It must have been really a lot of fun. Now the twins do have one unique command called Twin, as you can see there, because, you know, they work together. If I get a chance to use it, no, I won't get a chance to use it this time, because that will defeat that enemy. There we go. But it is a pretty powerful attack, it just takes an awful long time to get going. Palom and Porom have just got themselves levels, which is handy. And Cecil too, good. Cecil is level 20 now. I have absolutely no idea what that one is, so yeah, I haven't got thoughts about that. From the name of it, I suspect that it will be something that will be, how shall we put it, controversial. It will be divisive. Okay. Go away. Oh, definitely don't want to deal with those. Tiny mages are the worst. I hate fighting tiny mages, especially when they've got a big wall of other characters in front of them. Much better just to fight ravens. Especially at this point. Not too difficult. Here we go. No, I haven't heard of that one, so it's an interesting concept, I guess. Whoa! And then Palom just... That's the first time I've lost a character since starting this stream. Got a bit unlucky, of course. But, the dead character sprite is pretty hilarious. Poor Palom. That's right. I can recover Palom pretty quickly. And he goes, Porom just got an experience level which had life. That's handy. Right in time. There we go. Okay, we're actually getting close to that, there we go, as you can see right there. that is our next destination. This mountain we need to climb in order to prove that Cecil is genuine in his desire to fight back against this evil empire. So, this moment is actually my favourite moment in Final Fantasy IV. What's coming, and Sean will know if he's still on the stream, but people who aren't so familiar with this game or haven't played it before or seen it before, this scene in particular is my very favourite moment in Final Fantasy IV. So it's quite a lengthy dungeon from memory, and the moment at the top is pretty extended, so we'll probably stop this stream here today, but we will definitely take it up next week, because if nothing else, even if we jump to a different game after next week's stream, I definitely want to show this moment, because this is the pinnacle of Final Fantasy IV, and this is why it is one of the better Final Fantasies in my view. Do I think that Chinese imperialism will have a big impact on Square Enix? Probably not. The thing is, the Chinese, I guess, aesthetic and the kind of games that they like to play and stuff is not that really different to the Japanese aesthetic and the kind of games they like to play. If you play Sword and Fairy, for example, it feels very much like Final Fantasy, and to the point that a lot of people have said that it's a rip-off. You know, Chinese RPGs and Japanese RPGs are really not that different. So, I think it'll be fine. I think Square Enix in particular won't be affected. Yes, I definitely, you know, if you're in the stream, if you watch it next week, make sure you're around to talk about this moment in Final Fantasy IV next week, because yeah, it's a really special one. Really looking forward to this, actually. Haven't had this moment in Final Fantasy. I haven't played Final Fantasy IV for ages, so haven't had this moment to experience for quite a while. So looking forward to talking about it. Have a great week, everybody. We'll be back on Friday night for the fanservice DDNet After Dark. What we'll play, I'm not quite sure yet, but it'll be something fun. Otherwise, we will see you next time. There'll be plenty more videos and reviews up on digitallydownloaded.net in the meantime. Toodaloos, everyone.